Hello everybody, I hope you are well. Today we will be carrying on our study of photosynthesis, the process by which plants make their own food. So in the last lesson we saw that how water is taken up by the roots and goes from the xylem tube into the stem and then into the leaves. And then we also saw that stomata present mostly on the underside of the leaf have the openings so that the carbon dioxide from the air can go into the leaves to perform photosynthesis. And these two, water and carbon dioxide, are the raw materials needed for photosynthesis. And today we will be taking a better look at the cells involved in photosynthesis. And so we will be talking about those, but first let's take a look at this diagram we have here. So this is the cross section of a leaf. So I know this will be a little counterintuitive, but this is the thickness of a leaf. So we have multiple types of cells, helping and contributing in photosynthesis. So let's start off with the topmost layer. So this is top. You might have seen a very glossy coating. If you ever observed the top of a leaf, there's a very glossy, shiny coating. It's known as the cuticle, or the fact that it's transparent and that it is waxy. So the transparency helps for light to pass, because we know that light is what we're essentially changing with photosynthesis. We're changing light energy into chemical energy. So of course we'll need light to get to the lower layers of passes, because the cuticle is transparent and it allows light to pass through. Okay, and the second benefit of the cuticle is that it stops excess evaporation. So water leaving the surface of the leaf, it can stop that from its lose a lot of water, because it needs the water, first of all, for photosynthesis, and also to keep the cells firm in their place. Because if you don't give the plant water, you'll notice that the leaves start to wilt, and overall the plant starts to wilt. That's because the cells also require water, and the water keeps the cells firm, and so it stops excess evaporation. And it allows light to pass to the lower layers, so that the cells which actually photosynthesize can have the light to carry out this process. And then underneath the cuticle we have the upper epidermis, and nope, this cell does not, or this group of cells does not photosynthesize, but it does facilitate nonetheless. It has two important functions, because it's present above the actual photosynthesizing cells, which I aforementioned are made in made in red. That's why we can say that it protects the lower layers which photosynthesizes. So it protects the cells which photosynthesize. So it protects, and the second benefit we get out of the upper epidermis is that it yet again allows light to pass through. So light passes, because of course the upper epidermis does not carry out photosynthesis, and the light still needs to get to the photosynthesizing cells. The third and very important cell, we have the palisade mesophyll. Mesophyll is usually regarded as the cell which carries out photosynthesis, and so the palisade mesophyll does photosynthesize, definitely does so, and we can see that the structure is slightly different from the other cells that we see here. It's very tightly packed. So these cells are very tightly packed and they are slightly more elongated than the leaf. So it's more elongated, which means that the substances inside of the cell would be more in quantity. And we know that because this is a photosynthesizing cell, the substances are bound to be ones which help or really carry out photosynthesis. So we can see these blue dots right here. By the way, all of the colors I have used to code this diagram, they are not the actual colors in which the cells actually exist. This is just to make it simpler to understand, and I've also made a key right here. So these blue dots that we see here are chloroplasts. Chloroplasts. And what chloroplasts contain, very important for photosynthesis. And mind you, chloroplasts are only present in photosynthesizing cells. So like palisade mesophyll, and what we're going to know is spongy mesophyll and the guard cells. So right now we're focusing on palisade mesophyll, and it contains chloroplasts. And what chloroplasts in turn contain is chlorophyll. You might have heard this word before. It is the substance or the chemical which gives the leaves its green pigment. And chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis because, again, I'm going to reiterate a very important point. Light energy is changing into chemical energy, and in order to take in that light and to really absorb that light and use it, we need chlorophyll, and this is the green pigment cells. And chlorophyll is present in the chloroplasts, an essential part of a photosynthesizing cell. Therefore, it's also essential in the palisade mesophyll. Now moving on, we have the spongy mesophyll. So unlike the palisade mesophyll, which is very, very well structured for maximum photosynthesis, it is elongated, so maximum photosynthesis can really take place in the palisade mesophyll. And unlike the palisade mesophyll, I'm just going to abbreviate here as well, so you know that this means maximum photosynthesis. And this is because the palisade mesophyll is elongated, chloroplasts packed inside the cell, and that means more chlorophyll and more retention of sunlight. And below that we have the spongy mesophyll, and as I have mentioned, they are slightly different in their structure from the palisade mesophyll. The spongy mesophyll are not arranged in a specific order, so they're kind of all around the place, and they have small air gaps in between. So we can see that there are a lot of gaps because they're not very well aligned. They have air gaps in between, and that's also for a reason, and a very good one at that. They have air gaps in between, so gaseous exchange can take place. So as we have studied before, we know that carbon dioxide goes in from the stomata, and these openings right here are the stomata. And carbon dioxide goes in from here. And so if these were, tightly packed, there won't be any gap for the gas to travel and be used for photosynthesis. And by the way, spongy mesophyll also photosynthesizes. All the cells that I've shown with these blue dots do photosynthesize. So the spongy mesophyll, relatively less chloroplasts are present there, but it nonetheless photosynthesizes. So these gaps are very, very important. They allow the gaseous exchange, and once photosynthesis has been completed, the resulting gas, which we will learn is oxygen, also exits from these air gaps and out from the stomata. And another thing I would like to mention is that H2O, which is the chemical representation of water, it does give out water. And this phenomena of the plant giving out water from the leaves through the stomata is known as transpiration. Transpiration. And transpiration is different from evaporation, and we'll get to why in a second. So transpiration, very important for the water cycle as well, because it releases the water into the atmosphere. Transpiration, yes. So transpiration is when the feels that it has enough water and it can give out the water as vapors. So that's transpiration. But evaporation, which we talked about here, about how the cuticle prevents evaporation, that evaporation basically means the the water on the surface of the leaf. So on the surface here, gaining energy from the sun's heat, because the sun is right here and it gives off heat. And when the sun heats up the water on the surface and then the water evaporates, that is known as evaporation. But when the water is given out by the plant from the stomata, that is transpiration.